Hey guys, my name's Ben and today I'm wrenching on my 1994 Chevy K1500. In this video I'm going to show how to replace the pinion seal on the rear differential as well as remove and reinstall the drive shaft. So right here's the drive shaft going all the way up to the front into the transfer case. All the way back here is the back universal joint. So mine's got some play in it, and that is not good. You can actually see those needle bearings inside the cap on the top. So that cap is completely busted, and this is definitely undrivable. I'm going to replace the drive shaft. I'm also going to do this back pinion seal. It's obviously leaking, probably caused by the damage done by the busted U-joint. Got them both soaking in some PB Blaster. Should make the job a little easier. But let's get started. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is take off these 11mm bolts. There's 4, 2 on each side, holding the end of the U-joint. All right. There we go. All right, now we're in business. All right, there we go. Top one's out too. So I've got the drive shaft resting up on the yoke. Really don't want to let this thing hang down if you can help it. But to get this pinion seal off, I'm going to need to take this nut off here. It's a 32mm, so I'm going to take that off, pull this yoke out, and replace that seal right there. Got the drive shaft off the back. So on the front, it just slides out. So I can actually just pull that drive shaft back. So I'm going to get a catch pan and see how much comes out there. Actually, before I do that, I need to make sure my fill plug is going to come out of the transfer case so I can fill it with fluid once I'm done. If that doesn't come out, then I'm not going to be able to put more fluid in, and then I have a new problem. So let's double check that first. This is the back of the transfer case. That there is your fill plug, and below it is the drain plug. So I'm going to loosen this and make sure that I can get it off so I can refill it. So the fill plug appears to be a 30mm socket. I can fit this on pretty well. So I think it's a 30. Luckily I've got one. And it's loose. Awesome. So we're good there. Alright, so I got my catch pan under there. Let's see how much fluid comes out. Alright, not bad. Fluid looks good too. So that's good news. Alright, so the drive shaft is out. Alright, so the last thing I'm going to do is clean up this nut so I can take this off. It's got a bunch of junk in there, so I'm going to blow it out with my compressed air. And I'm also going to use a pick and just kind of scrape around here and knock some of this rust loose. Hopefully it'll help me get this nut off. Spray some more PB Blaster in there too. Alright, so it's definitely a 32 millimeter nut. Alright, so one of the things we want to do is count how many threads we can see on this shaft. And I'm seeing 2, maybe 3. So when we put that nut back on, we want to thread this back on so we can see 2 or 3 threads. So one of the things I'm going to do is mark shaft, the nut, the yoke, and the seal, and also the side of the differential, so that way we can make sure everything lines up the way that it came off. Alright, so I got my catch pan under the differential, under the yoke, and I'm going to try to use a pry bar with this 32 millimeter socket on that nut and see if I can break it loose. Alright, time for plan B. Alright, here's plan B. Alright, so here's everything I used to take the drive shaft off. Quarter drive socket wrench with an 11 millimeter socket. This is my half drive socket. I used the 11 millimeter. I've got 2 11 millimeter wrenches. I've got some markers, pick to clean up the nut before we took it off, and a smaller socket. This one's great. I'll link this in the description, but I love this thing because it gets in anywhere. 30 millimeter socket to loosen the fill plug on the transfer case. 32 millimeter socket to take off the nut. This is the tool I'm going to use to take the yoke off. It's a loaner tool from AutoZone. There's the part number right there, 57187. Uses a 19 millimeter socket. Wow, that was way easier than I thought it was going to be. Okay. Seal puller. There we go. All right, on the back of the differential, or actually I guess this would be the front, there's the fill plug. I just used a screwdriver and scraped all this rust off. Got in here and scraped this out. And I'm gonna hit it with some PB Blaster. You wanna do this before you pull the seal off. Don't do what I did and drain the fluid before you know if the fill plug will come out. So I'll let that soak for a while before I try to get it out. But you definitely want to take that out first, because if you can't get that out, then you don't want to pull the seal. Otherwise you won't be able to fill the differential again. So hoping I'll get lucky. Amateur mistake, but definitely want to make sure you do that first. So I did get the drain plug out. I used a 3/8 extent or a 3/8 adapter on my 1/2-inch impact and got it out. So that is good news. Make sure you do that before you pull the seal. So I got this grease gun to grease the U-joints, and I'm going to use that grease to grease up the seal before I put it in. Thought it was funny though. It says add butter. So I thought that was kind of funny. Alright, so I got everything cleaned up. I've got the seal out, the drain plug out, and I tried to clean everything up as best I could, but I'm ready to put the new seal in. So this is the seal I got. It's the Timken, and there's the part number if you need it. I'm gonna grease it with this grease that I got in my grease gun kit, and I pulled all my tools out. Sometimes I think you know how good of a mechanic you are based on how many tools it takes you to do a job, and looks like I got a long way to go, but that's okay. So we'll get this out and get it greased up and get it in there. We will compare the new seal to the old one, and I would say it was definitely time to replace this because it was completely gone. Alright, so I'm going to grease the new seal. Just want to make sure it'll slide in real well. Hopefully that should be enough. Alright, so I'm going to get it in there and line it up as best I can. Use a rubber mallet and just kind of lightly tap on it. Try to get it in evenly. So I'm going to try to use a roll of tape to get it in evenly. I I don't see any gaps all the way around. So I think we are good. Looks pretty good. So we'll go ahead and get the yoke back on. All right, before I put the yoke back on, I want to clean all these surfaces up with the wire brush. So I'm just gonna get some of this rust off. And hopefully that'll help with the seal. All right, so that looks pretty good. So it looks like we're ready to get this back on. All right, so we're gonna line our white mark up with the mark that we had on the side, at least as close as we can get it. So I'm gonna start the nut by hand, and then on my lowest setting, see if I can get it to start pretty easily. All right, so I can see one thread. The second one's starting to come through, so I only need to turn it a little bit further. All right, so that looks like how it looked when it came off. So I'm actually just gonna leave it there. I think that looks pretty good. Now we're ready to clean all this up since it's sealed again. We can fill the rear differential and put the drive shaft back on. The Haynes manual said use 80W90 oil, gear oil, so that's what I'm going to use. And I've got a pump. I'll link that in the description. So that's what I'm going to use to fill the differential. So there, it's coming out pretty good, so I think I'm full. So that used almost all of it. There's a little bit left at the bottom. I'd say it's about up to here. So one bottle got me by. Just changing the seal. So I'm ready to put the fill plug back in. All right, so that's about how it looked when I took it off. I'm gonna check the torque spec and torque it down. Haynes repair manual. Differential fill plug, 10 to 20 foot-pounds. Here we go. All right, so I've got the yoke back on. I've got the differential filled and the drain plug back in and torqued down. So I am ready to put the new drive shaft in. I had to order a new one, and I will show you why. So this one, this is all bent up, and what I noticed is that snap ring is not going to be able to sit in there correctly. So you can see the groove there that the snap ring is supposed to go into. And it's all bent up. And I just don't think a new snap ring is going to sit in there right. So that's why I'm going to get a new one. But yeah, I'm ready to put the new one in. Got everything done down there. Just need to clean that up a little bit. And put my tools away. So I got a new drive shaft. And I'm just comparing it to the old one. This one was 200 bucks. The ones I saw online were like $850 for the Dorman. And that's the only one that I could find that was this size. So since I've got an extended cab, the drive shaft's a bit longer than the normal one. So anyway, this one looks okay. There's only one thing that I don't like about it. And I lined this side up. And in comparing them, I noticed this one is just a bit shorter than that one. So I don't like that, but I think it's still gonna work. So I'm gonna try to install it, but I did want to point that out. Other than that, it looks really good though. So we're ready to get this new one in. All right, I'm gonna put the front of the drive shaft in first. So I've got the back of the drive shaft resting on top of the yoke. I'm gonna slide that U-joint in here and it should fit in between these tabs sticking out. Okay. So it looks like I need to rotate it probably like one tooth this way. It's a little off center. I'm gonna see if I can pull out the front and rotate it. Pull this out and rotate it. So just to give you a better look, this cap is in there and underneath that tab, which looks good. They put tape on it so the caps wouldn't come off, and I like that. I just don't know if I should take them off before I bolt this down, but this one looks pretty good too. Looks like it's seated well. So I'm gonna go ahead and get those straps on, get those strap bolts torqued down, and I'll probably just leave that tape on because I really don't want to mess with getting it off while this thing's loose. And I'm probably going to replace these straps and strap bolts at some point. I got a replacement set, but it's the wrong size. So I'm going to have to use my old ones and put those back on. So I'll get some new ones, and at some point I'll change those out, and maybe I'll take this tape off when I do that, but I don't want to do it right now. I just want to get this thing done. All right, so time to get these straps back on and bolted down. So it said torque these down to 15 foot-pounds, but obviously I'm not going to be able to get my torque wrench in there, so I know that 15 is not super tight. So I'm just going to tighten them down, make sure they're tightened down pretty good, and I'll probably over-tighten them because I just want to make sure they're going to hold. Some good news, my ratcheting wrench fits in there, so that'll make this a little bit quicker. So we'll just make sure these are all tight. For some reason, these 11mm bolts do not fit any of my open-ended wrenches. So that one's tight. That one's tight. That one's good. That one's good. All right, so we got the rear in there. That cap is seated real well. Got the bottom bolts in. That cap looks good too. Just gonna leave that tape on there. If that's a terrible idea, you guys will let me know in the comments. But the drive shaft is in. So that gap right there is, I really don't like that. It does not look like it fits right. So I guess we will see if it leaks when I fill the transfer case with transmission fluid. So let's get that filled up, see if it leaks, and should be done. 30mm socket. Alright, so I'm going to fill this the same way I did the rear differential. I'm going to use my manual oil pump. Put the tube right in there and pump some transmission fluid in there until it leaks out. And there we go. Alright, so that is full. So I'll let it go ahead and leak out as much as it needs to. And once it all leaks out, then I know it's full and I can put this cap back on. Alright, so that's probably good. I'm going to go ahead and put this cap back on. Tighten this down and then we're done. So I do not see a torque spec for this transfer case fill plug, and I'm not too worried about it, so I'm just gonna torque it down. Alright, that should be good. I've got the hose in the transmission fluid bottle. It runs to my manual pump. Pump it in there and it comes out the other hose. So I'm just cleaning this out. So I've got the front into the transfer case. Got the transfer case refilled with fluid. And I've got the rear in. Got the straps and the strap bolts tightened down and a new seal on the back. So I'm going to clean all this up. Probably take that cover off and clean it. And that way I'll be able to tell if there's a leak once I start it. Job well done. Alright, I got that transfer case cover off. Wanted to show this because these bolts have nuts on the other side. This is a 15mm nut and a T50 Torx bolt. It's got 4 of them. There's the other 3 over there, but I just wanted to show that real quick. I want to close this video by just kind of reiterating a few points that I made through the video. So the first is going to be this. I think you should definitely make sure that you take out the drain plug for the differential, the fill plug, before you take out the pinion seal and the yoke. That's definitely a point that I want to make. I messed up there. Don't do what I did and wait till you take the yoke out to try to get that fill plug out. Make sure you do that first. Second is, when I did that, I used a torch, and I will say do not use a torch. The gas tank is right over there. It's a terrible idea to use a torch there. Don't do what I did. The third thing I want to say is definitely make sure you get the right part. So I'm convinced that mine is incorrect. It's too short. I'm going to have to get a new one. I've actually got it on the way. I'm going to do another video installing that, and I'm also going to change the output seal on the transfer case where the drive shaft goes in. So there will be a second video, but make sure you get the right part. My original drive shaft is 73.125 inches, and that is going to be the overall length. So that is from end to end, all the way to this end is 73.125 inches. It's Dorman 946050. That is the correct drive shaft for a 94 Chevy K1500 extended cab with the wheelbase of 141.5. It's 141.5 inches from the center of the front wheel to the center of the back wheel. And the last point I want to make is if you are just changing your U-joints, you can definitely do that. You don't need to get a new drive shaft. The reason I did is because when I took my U-joint out, like I said, this was bent and I didn't think I was going to be able to get a new U-joint in there. I definitely wasn't, because when I took this U-joint out, the way I did that was put the biggest socket I could on this side and hammered it in with a hammer. And when I did that from this side, I popped the U-joint through, and because it was bent, I ended up breaking the end of it. So this one definitely was bad. I was not able to change the U-joints, but you might be able to, and that'll save you a lot of money. The drive shaft that I got was $570, and these U-joints are like 16 bucks. So if you can, you may just want to change out your U-joints and not have to deal with the whole drive shaft. I mean, you'll still have to take it out, but you may not need to buy a new one. So definitely try that first. And I may make a video on how to change those U-joints for you too, but I really don't need to change any at this point because the new drive shafts, those come with U-joints on them. So those are the points I wanted to make in closing this video. Thanks for watching. I know it was a long one, but I wanted to include everything in, even some of my mistakes and some of the stuff that some people skip over, because I think it's important for people who've never done something like this. This was my first time doing a drive shaft, doing a pinion seal, so I was learning as I went. But I appreciate you guys watching. Make sure you subscribe, check out some of my other videos, and look forward to part 2. All right, thanks for watching.